Hello everybody. Welcome to TCOM 101 Online. I'm Dr. Mike Gerhard, Department of Telecommunications, Ball State, and you're watching online video number 19. In the last video, we discussed libertarianism, the political ideology or philosophy upon which our country, the United States of America, is based. And this is the political ideology that plays up individual liberty and individual freedom and calls for a minimum role for government and governmental authority. Now, libertarianism is wonderful to give people all of this freedom, right? But we know that not everybody will behave responsibly. So in the 20th century, we developed this idea of social responsibility. And this theory is really an extension of libertarianism that recognizes some of the failures of pure marketplace libertarianism. Social responsibility theory insists that freedom carries obligations, responsibilities, duties. You know this from watching Spider-Man, the notion that with great power comes great responsibility. Or think about the world of alcohol. In this country, adults are given the freedom to drink, but they're always encouraged to drink responsibly. Social responsibility. Social responsibility theory is really a normative theory of ethics. That means it doesn't describe how things are, but it prescribes how things should be. It's not descriptive, it's more prescriptive. It describes how the media should ideally operate in a free and democratic society. Therefore, it's full of values and opinions. And that's one of the problems with social responsibility theory. Social responsibility theory asserts that the media should remain free of any government, regulation, control, but in exchange, the media must serve the public and the public's interest. The social responsibility theory traditionally centered upon the news and information function of the media, journalistic performance. But you can take this ethic and apply it to entertainment, movies, TV shows, video games, and to advertising and persuasion as well. But the center of social responsibility theory has always been the news media and raising questions about a journalistic performance. Now, social responsibility theory got a big boost in the 1940s in mid-20th century America. And back then, radio and newspapers were the two dominant forms of mass communication. But a lot of critics looked at the news coming from radio and TV and raised questions about the quality of the journalism. Now, a bunch of elite academics got together at the University of Chicago, and this group, a commission on press freedom, was led by Robert Hutchins, who was then the chancellor at the University of Chicago. These academics got together for several years to study the status of journalism in America, and they eventually released a report called A Free and Responsible Press. A Free and Responsible Press. In this report, the commission cautioned against concentration of ownership and the media's preoccupation with sensationalism. And the commission felt that the news media needed to take much more responsibility for its actions. So they put forth a number of recommendations. The 1947 report on the Commission of Freedom of the Press included this important recommendation. It said the press must provide a truthful, comprehensive, and intelligent account of the day's events in a context which gives them meaning. Now, this is a high standard of performance for journalists. Think about this, a truthful account. Truth is elusive, it's hard to pin down. Comprehensive, that means all-encompassing, telling all the important stories. Very difficult to do. Intelligent account, okay, is that what we get sometimes when we watch TV news? Does it ever insult our intelligence? How about this part? an account of the day's events in a context which gives them meaning. And context is everything, folks. This is the background, the analysis, the interpretation that helps us make sense of the facts. It's the truth behind the facts. Now, this is one of the media's obligations to us in society, to give us the complete truth with as much explanation as possible. And so you should be aware of these news media obligations. This is how you should evaluate the performance of the news media. Is the news informative? Are they telling the important stories and not just the trivia? Okay? Are they being interpretive, analyzing, giving context and background? Is the news comprehensive? Is it covering all of the various stories out there? Is it accurate? Of course, that's the cardinal rule of journalism, accuracy. Is it objective? Is it fair and balanced? Is it diverse? Does it represent all of the aspects of society? And is it timely? These are standards of performance for the news media. Now, like I said, the social responsibility theory has traditionally centered on news and information, but we can apply this ethic to entertainment and advertising. The important thing about social responsibility theory is that it calls for self-regulation and not government control or regulation. Self-regulation, self-limitation. I hope we're making some sense here. Self-regulation. This is what we're doing right now when we limit ourselves from going outside, from shaking hands and touch. We are behaving in socially responsible behavior. Let's give you an example from Hollywood in the movies, an example that centers around smoking. Now, there are no federal laws that prohibit Hollywood from showing tobacco in films. There's no regulation to limit the depiction of tobacco in the movies. And traditionally, we see cigarette smoking appear in a lot of movies, especially movies that are aimed towards younger people. Now, did you know that all 6 major Hollywood studios have adopted policies to address tobacco depictions in their movies? The first of these was Walt Disney back in 2004, but all of the major studios have a policy to try and reduce or even eliminate depictions of tobacco. So let's look at one of these, which is a good example, representative of the other policies. The Time Warner, the Warner Brothers policy, which goes back to 2005. First, let's look at kind of the introductory statement, the preamble, if you will. Warner Brothers understands that entertainment programming has an impact on habits and culture. Without curtailing artistic freedom, we're sensitive to the impact of the films and TV programs we produce. So, Warner Brothers actively works to reduce tobacco imagery in film. So it wants to reduce tobacco imagery, but at the same time, protect artistic freedom, creativity, artistic license. So, let's look a little more at the policy. First, what about product placement? The policy says that Warner does not enter into any product placement, no product placement or promotional deals that are connected with tobacco companies. So no product placement of tobacco products. All right, what about movies aimed at children, G-rated movies? In those movies, Warner Brothers wants to reduce or eliminate completely any depictions of smoking or tobacco products. This in an effort to protect children. Now, does this curtail artistic freedom? Well, consider some of the loopholes or the exemptions to the policy. You know, there are certain exemptions to this policy. For example, 1, depictions involving a character who's an actual historic figure known to have used tobacco products. So this would be somebody like Winston Churchill with the cigar. Okay. Another loophole is the depiction warranted for reasons of compelling historical accuracy? Look, any movie that's set in 1930s, 40s, 50s, or even 60s America, should probably depict smoking, because during those times, smoking was widespread in the culture. Here's a third exemption. If the reference to tobacco is part of a anti-smoking reference, if it's a negative reference to tobacco, then that's considered to be acceptable. So those are the basic exceptions to the rule. Now, what about movies aimed at adults? In those, Time Warner is trying to reduce, but not necessarily eliminate, all the tobacco depictions. Now, some people don't think that this goes far enough. There's one public interest group called Smoke Free Movies, and they want to scrub tobacco from every movie. And if a film includes even one depiction of a cigarette or smoking, they want all those movies rated R. Now, this might be a little extreme, but it depends on your position on these issues. What do you think of this policy? Is it too weak? Is it reasonable? Or do you think, does it go too far? Is it a violation of artistic freedom? Could you live with those restrictions if you were a filmmaker? For me, they're very reasonable policies. Okay? I think they protect both society and artistic freedom at the same time. Here's another area where we can mention social responsibility. How about the way animals are treated in Hollywood, in film, and in TV productions? It's been very rough on animals over the years, especially horses. The Westerns, very, very hard on horses. Now, the answers to animal abuse lie in technology, believe it or not. A computer-generated imagery. We can create all kinds of computer-based images without actually using the real animals today. So technology, I think, comes to the rescue here. But anyway, there's always been a long-standing concern about the treatment of animals. Now, ever since the 40s, Hollywood has allowed the American Humane Association to come onto the movie sets and to monitor and to supervise how the animals were being treated. And the American Humane Association doesn't want any animal to be treated inhumanely to elicit a performance. In other words, we don't use animals as props. Okay? Now, the guidelines that the American Humane Association has issued for Hollywood are deep and extensive and cover just about every kind of species of animal that you can consider. But the idea here is that the filmmakers have a responsibility to give humane treatment to the animals that are featured within the film. And if a film company or a Hollywood studio meets these criteria, then they're allowed to put this label on the film that no animals were harmed in the making of the movie or the TV show. So this is not a legal requirement. This is an effort by Hollywood, I believe, to practice some social responsibility. So that's kind of the basic notion of social responsibility. Now, clearly there's problems with social responsibility theory. It's a difficult subject. How about deciding who's responsible to whom and for what? Is every company responsible for everything? What specific obligations do the media have to the public? Is this theory too paternalistic? Is it too heavy-handed? Does social responsibility theory open the door for government intervention? Suppose the media codified this, had a code of performance, and then didn't live up to the code. Well, that might open up the door for the government to come in and set the rules. Does social responsibility theory violate the First Amendment? Okay, does it limit or curtail any freedom? Maybe you have other concerns about social responsibility theory. Not everybody loves the theory. Many, especially some hardcore libertarians, assert there is no responsibility, no social responsibility for companies to do anything Think about Milton Friedman, a very prominent, highly regarded economist, a Nobel Prize winning economist, Milton Friedman. He once said the social responsibility of business is to increase profits. Friedman said that businesses have no social responsibility other than increasing profits and not to break the law. Now, personally, I don't agree with his assertion. Do you? Do you agree with Milton Friedman that companies have no social responsibility other than making profit? Is profit the only duty? Here in the Department of Telecommunications, we hold a different view. We think social responsibility is an important, relevant theory. In fact, the capstone course in the TCOM department at Ball State is a course on ethics and social responsibility. Okay, that's a little bit of a look at this idea of social responsibility. In the next video, we'll take a deeper look at this and see how the media and tech companies are really defining this idea of social responsibility in the 21st century. But that's all we've got for this lecture. Hang in there, stay safe, and we'll talk again soon. So long.